Would Pride and Prejudice have been different if Colonel Fitzwilliam had accompanied Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy to Netherfield? What would happen if Mr. Darcy made friends with a mysterious member of the Meryton neighbourhood who refuses an introduction, but who has a close relationship with the Bennet household? Mr. Bingley had not been of age 2 years when he was tempted by an accidental recommendation to look at Netherfield House. He did look at it, and into it, for half an hour, was pleased with the situation and the principal rooms, satisfied with what the owner said in its praise, and took it immediately. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a true lady must possess the attributes of sincerity, generosity, sympathy, modesty, and serenity. Once a single lady is in sufficient possession of these attributes, it then becomes her desire to find a single man who possesses a good fortune and is in want of a wife. Miss Jane Bennet and Miss Elizabeth Bennet were just such ladies. "My dear Jane," Elizabeth exclaimed as she ungracefully lunged into the middle of Jane's bed to have their nightly chat, "have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last?" Jane replied that she had not. "But it is," returned she, "for I have just overheard Mamma telling Papa." Jane nodded, but made no answer. "Do you not want to know who has taken it?" continued Lizzie, in her best imitation of their mother's voice. "You want to tell me, and I have no objection to hearing it," giggled Jane, as she attempted to imitate their father. This was invitation enough. "Well then, dearest Jane, you must know that Mamma told Papa that Mrs. Long said that Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England, that he came down on Monday with his 2 closest friends to see the place, and was so much delighted with it that he agreed with Mr. Morris immediately that he is to take possession before Michaelmas, and some of his servants are to be in the house by the end of next week." "What are their names?" "Bingley, Fitzwilliam, and Darcy." "Are others to be joining them for their stay?" asked Jane. Elizabeth laughed. "Why, Jane, that is not the correct question to ask. Don't you mean to ask the same one that Papa asked?" "What did Papa ask, dearest Lizzie?" "Why, are they married or single, of course?" Jane laughed at Lizzie's frightfully accurate representation of their mother's voice, as she continued entirely on her own, imitating both her mother's and father's voices. "Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. 3 single men of independent fortunes. Bingley is said to have 4,000 or 5,000 a year. Fitzwilliam is a second son to an earl and a colonel in the militia, and Darcy, why, this is the best of all. He is said to have a clear 10,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls." "How so? How can it affect them?" "My dear, how can you be so tiresome? You must know that I'm thinking of them marrying 2 or 3 of them." "Is that their design in settling here?" "Design nonsense! How can you talk so? But it is very likely that they may fall in love with them. They are the most beautiful girls in the entire country. I've been told more than once, and therefore you must visit them as soon as they come." It was here that Jane interrupted Lizzie, since she could bear no more. Her face and sides hurt from smiling and laughing so much at Lizzie's crazy antics. "Is father actually taking the time to go and visit the Netherfield gentlemen? He rarely takes the time to visit any newcomers." "No, Jane, you are correct in your implied meaning behind your question. Father will not be visiting them, much to our mother's vexation, which I am sure we will be hearing about until the night of the Meryton Assembly Ball." Mr. Bennet had been among the earliest of those who waited on Mr. Bingley of Netherfield. He had always intended to visit him, though assuring his wife and daughters until the night of the Meryton Assembly that he should not go. All intelligence that the ladies had learned of the Netherfield gentleman was gathered from the father of Elizabeth's close friend, Miss Charlotte Lucas. Sir William Lucas informed them that it was Mr. Bingley who had leased Netherfield, and he stated that he was delighted with him. Mr. Bingley was quite young. He appeared to be wonderfully handsome, extremely agreeable, and to crown the whole, he means to be at the next assembly with his entire party. Nothing could be more delightful. To be fond of dancing was a certain step towards falling in love, and very lively hopes of Mr. Bingley's heart were entertained.